Alright, one thing that I do every off season and usually halfway through the season is I clean the calipers and replace the seals, because typically if I don't, I'm only going to get about 3/4 of the way through the season before I end up having a leak. And that's usually just because of brake dust, and it's kind of sticky and corrosive, and it kind of builds up on the pistons, and then when they're moving back and forth it can actually tear a seal. I've had that happen a couple of times, and over the last 2 years when I've just been like, nope, they're going to be brand new at the beginning of the season and I'm going to change them halfway through the season, which is usually about the end of June, then I haven't had any problems all season with my brake calipers at all. So just going to go over changing the seals out. These Outlaw calipers I have can be disassembled all the way. I did that when I originally got them because they were unknown condition and I got them used, so I took them all the way apart so that I could get in there and polish the bores a little bit and all that. Since then I haven't really had to go through all that work, so we're just going to get the pistons out and scrub them, clean everything up, and then I'll just get in there and give it a little wipe down with some emery cloth and go from there. One of the easiest ways for getting the pistons out that I like to do is take a 2x4 and just stick it in here, and then we can shoot some air into the line and it'll push the pistons out. These calipers are set up for a 2¼ inch wide rotor, which makes the 2x4 fit really nice in there. And typically the piston length is about perfect for when they come out. They'll hit and they'll all get squished out to where it's just a little bit of a wiggle to get them to pop out the rest of the way. And then we just pop them out. And of course it makes a mess. I should have put a rag down. Oh, that's about all it is to getting the pistons out. I find that's a really slick way to do it. If you have a caliper that's not for 2¼ inch wide rotor, the 2x4 obviously isn't going to work. You'll need something narrower, most likely, for whether it's a 1.1 rotor or even something a little smaller than that. Next we need to take the seals out. And that's easily done with just a little pick. I like to use, let's see, it's gonna focus. It's probably too small. Next we need to take the seals out. I just use this curved pick to do so. And that's pretty easy because I can just get in here, get behind the seal, and pull the sucker out. Now I can kind of clean them off and give these a quick inspection. I know I didn't have any leaks going on, but we can check them and see if there was any premature wear or how close they were getting to needing to be replaced. So these seals look pretty good overall. As you can see with this one, as I twist it through the light, it's nice uniform on the wear surface, which would be the inside of it. That's where the piston moves back and forth. I mean, it's nice, smooth, shiny across there. This one, however, see that little bit of a coarser edge to it? The one closest to the camera. You know, it's nice and smooth back here where the tip is at, but it gets coarser right up towards the leading edge there. You can see a little bit of a difference. If I could zoom in on this there, it'd show you better, but the camera doesn't want to focus on that. So, but that's where it's showing wear on the seal. It is still, I mean, at most it's halfway across the seal. So it wasn't leaking, but it would have been a failure at some point in the future. I mean, I probably could have had another 3-4 events possibly, but at some point it would have given up and leaked. Looking at the pistons, you can see this buildup. That's what starts wearing into those seals and causes them to leak. And you can see on this one that extra shiny part where it had a little extra pressure on it compared to the rest of the way around, so it wasn't pushing perfectly straight. But that's pretty normal. I mean, I haven't seen anything where it caused a big issue, because they've all looked like, at least one or two have looked like this every time I've taken them apart. Perhaps it's, you know, how well the bore fits to that piston that it just tips a little bit. But for the most part, what we need to do here now is we need to clean these up to a nice even shine all the way around, and that's why we'll use emery cloth. I keep saying emery cloth, but I also use this like Scotch-Brite pad. That works as well. Well, and that's just a matter of, I'm just going to do this by hand. And it doesn't take a whole lot. I mean, you can just see how quickly it shines up. And just go through all 4 of them, get them shined up. And yeah, there is some situations where there's a little bit of this older pitting or wear that just isn't going to come off of there. I can't even feel it with my fingernail, and being a machinist, I know that that means it's less than 1/1000th of an inch, and that is not enough to cause any sort of a problem with these. Alright, well that's the first one disassembled. I'm just going to skip through, do the second one, so you can just wash everything all at once, and we'll pick back up there. Alright, we won't skip ahead, because trying to get the pistons out. As you can see, one popped out all the way there at the back, and it's leaking air past it. So I'm actually just going to take a piece of metal to kind of shim that one, and then I can get the others out. Mostly I just need to hold it in enough to build the air pressure with the others. There we go. Alright, now that I've got the calipers cleaned up, I didn't go crazy trying to get every last little bit of grime off of them, because they're just going to end up covered in grime again anyway. So now we need to just put new seals in and pop the pistons back in. If you didn't notice already, I got 2 different styles. That's because there's the old style caliper and a newer style one. They're sized the same, so they function the same. And, you know, when you're on a budget, nobody needs to be picky and choosy. So, the seals that are used in these Outlaws are the same as a Wilwood caliper, as are many others. They're pretty much interchangeable for this style of caliper. So, we just need to lubricate these seals a bit, and you just do that with some brake fluid. Doesn't really matter what kind it is, as long as it's just some brake fluid, so that, you know, you don't want to be using oil or something of that nature where it's gonna be still in that caliper when you go to try to use the brakes, because it'll contaminate the brake fluid. So just got to get it lubricated up all the way, and then we can just push it into the bore, and we'll do that for all of them. Now for putting the pistons in, I'm just going to put a little brake fluid across the pistons. So same thing, I'm just going to Get a little bit on a finger, rub it around, make sure it's well lubricated, and push them in. And as you might guess, no brake caliper refresh is complete without new pads and spares. And since I'm going to be running the same pad all the way around, another set of pads and spares. As you can see, they're easy enough to install without having to pull the bridge bolts, although the bridge bolts can be handy if you're hot swapping. But since I'm doing everything brand new, and usually when I change pads I gotta rebuild the calipers anyway. I mean, there's still plenty of life I had in last year's set, and the calipers weren't leaking like I said before, but I just like to have completely fresh pads starting out the new year. I'll save some of the used ones if they tend to look good. Otherwise, the backs were pretty even, but I know on the fronts they typically end up getting some taper because one piston will start sticking before the others. So usually those I'll just end up chucking. But otherwise, these calipers are ready to put back on the rear end. Let's talk about what I'm running for brake pads for this year. I have been running Hawk DCT60s on the front, but I was running a Wilwood pad on the rear. And last 2 years actually, when I've been running that setup there, I've had to dial in a lot of brake pad bias. But what I found that I wasn't liking was how aggressive the DCT60 was. And while it was nice for like an autocross kind of setup, what it lacked was modulation, especially in high-speed brake zones on a big track. So I was recommended the ER1 pad. It's actually a little bit less aggressive than the DCT60 from what I can see as far as the curves and how they recommend it. However, it should increase modulation, and its ER designation is endurance racing, so what they were going for was longevity and having good repeatable brake pedal modulation as far as I know. So I'm looking to get that as an increase and to balance out the front and rear bias. Instead of having a whole bunch of proportioning valve adjusted in, I'm going to run the same pad front and rear and hopefully have a much closer right off the bat window there, and I can use the proportioning valve for some smaller adjustments versus really it was a huge adjustment that I had in it to try and make it work last year with the two different pad styles.